Hi, my name is Janice Winchester, and welcome to this presentation about the Shroud of Turin. A look at the linen fabric burial cloth, the photography that stunned the world, and the instrumentation that set the scientific world wondering how the image appeared. And what about the carbon-14 dating test? First, why was the linen burial cloth used for the man of the shroud? Historical literature describing events about 2,000 years ago records a man named Jesus of Nazareth who taught about the love of God and love for others. He was betrayed and sentenced to death, a death that included crowning with piercing thorns, scourging with a whip with metal attached, jailed, and then made to carry a heavy beamed wooden cross to Calvary. There he was nailed to the cross with a nail to the left wrist and the right wrist, and one entering both the left and right feet. After 3 hours he died. Yet a Roman centurion thrust a spear between the fifth rib and struck the heart and pericardium, and blood and water gushed out. A wealthy person offered a fine new linen shroud burial cloth and a new carved out tomb. The man, said to be Jesus of Nazareth, was taken down from the cross. Inside the tomb, the linen shroud was placed on the slab. Jesus was placed with his back on a portion of the 14-foot linen, with the remainder of the linen pulled over his head to cover down to his feet. This is an illustration showing that the man of the shroud was laid and the linen fabric pulled over, so the man was between the folded linen. The time was late in the day, so the people attending Jesus said they would come back on the first day of the week to finish the burial customs. The stone was placed in front of the opening. Roman soldiers guarded the tomb opening, yet when the people returned, they found that Jesus was no longer there. Only remaining were some cloths. And this is an illustration as to what they might have seen with the image on the linen cloth. No body remained in the tomb. What happened to these cloths has been the subject of the most studied items ever. The questions about the shroud and how it traveled along the journey from Jerusalem to Turin, Italy, and the Sudarium to Oviedo, Spain, is intriguing. Between these cloths, there is evidence showing the AB blood type as well as dating information. I have seen the original of the Sudarium Oviedo and the Shroud of Turin. In February of 2019, I gave a presentation at the American Academy of Forensic Sciences that included the historical, archaeological, and other dating information that showed evidence that the Shroud of Turin was in existence prior to the dating dilemma as stated by the carbon-14 testing, indicating it is not a medieval forgery. Now here's a picture of the Sudarium in the upper left and the shroud as it appears today, showing the fire damage, the burn holes, and the water stains. And these are also useful for dating purposes. What is the VP8 image analyzer? This specialized research and education that I conducted, along with my background in forensic science, made this VP8 image analyzer finding spectacular. A little-known scientific instrument, the VP8 image analyzer, used with a photograph of the Shroud of Turin, shows hidden evidence of the man of the shroud. How can this be done using a 2D photo of the Shroud of Turin to produce an apparent 3D view? This photograph shows the image of a Shroud of Turin photograph being imaged in with a live video camera to the VP8 image analyzer, and what shows on the oscilloscope monitor is an apparent 3D view. I would like to take a word of thanks to the many shroud researchers who assisted me in learning about this unique evidence. My research used 3 different VP8 image analyzers and 3 different oscilloscopes with the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis capability. Each test confirmed what was observed by the scientist in 1976-77. It was the VP8 image analyzer that sparked the interest of the scientists involved with the Shroud of Turin research project, STURP, to travel to Turin, Italy, and study how the image occurred. However, since that time, there's been little discussion about the VP8 image analyzer. One reason is that the expanding field of digital technology continues to provide multi-dimensional software such as ImageJ, ArcGIS, and Adobe Photoshop. However, the vital aspect of the VP8 image analyzer is that it is an analog instrument, making it difficult to manipulate or alter the results. The VP8 image analyzer was an advanced instrument for the time, manufactured by Interpretation Systems, and they produced a limited number of units. Today, there are less than 10 known working instruments available. This is a photo of the face area of the Shroud of Turin as it appears on the oscilloscope using the VP8 image analyzer. The oscilloscope shows the X, the Y, and the Z featuring the density of the topography and the isometric display. The VP8 image analyzer uses an isometric projection capability to record the shroud to body distance that aids in the analysis of the content. The proportions are essential in the analysis. For example, if a high snow-covered mountain photograph contains a dark round container on the top of the snow-covered mountain, it will be shown as a dark hole due to the effect of the grayscale. We know that's not the case. However, that is what happens with topographic isometric projection results. That is why the portrait of the man of the shroud is unique. There is no other photo when imaged with the VP8 image analyzer that gives the proportional portrait. Now here's an image of the area of the spear wound. The blood shows as white and it increases in density as the Z-axis approaches the viewer in height on the display monitor. The middle is a photograph taken by Giuseppe Henri in 1931 of the spear wound area of the shroud. And on the far right is the section of the Shroud of Turin showing the spear wound entry area where the diagram shows. The VP8 image analyzer, as an analog scientific instrument, brings to life the invisible evidence contained on the Shroud of Turin to visibly show the effect of a burst of energy or a type of light spectrum, with the photons remaining and embedded in the weave of the linen fabric burial cloth. The VP8 image analyzer used with a live capture video of a 2D photograph of the Shroud of Turin, along with an oscilloscope capable of the XYZ axis, provides the viewer an apparent 3D portrait on the display monitor. The portrait shows the length, width, and height of the man of the shroud's portrait. The burst of energy, collimated and focused, only discolored the minute fibrils of the shroud's fabric in alignment with the body. The quick explosion of energy, therefore, came from the inside of the body, changing the fibrils of the linen inside the folded cloth wrapping the body. Some describe this radiating energy as what might have occurred at the time of the resurrection. This event discolored only the molecular area of the fibril of the linen, causing a straw yellow color on the crowns of the threads only. There was no sign of capillary action, which ruled out liquids, or diffusion, which ruled out vapors. It was because of this numerical encoding of color that the VP8 was able to read the 3D aspect of the front and back images. This is due to the distance of the cloth to the body areas, for example, the tip of the nose versus under the chin. The scientific team of the Shroud of Turin research project, STURP. The idea of examining the original of the Shroud of Turin became a reality when Dr. John Jackson and other volunteer scientists, such as from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Sandia Laboratory, Harris County Medical Examiner's Office, went to view the original shroud in Turin, Italy. They had protocols set up, and that included Lots of hands-on testing, ultraviolet to infrared wavelength measurements, and photography. The list of individuals and the tests they performed are described on the website shroud.com. These scientists traveled to Turin to determine how the image was placed on the linen. Their finalized conclusion is they did not know how the image was produced. The Shroud of Turin, as a document, is accurate as to the passion and death as described in the literature of Jesus, and for the medical details of torture. Yet the man of the shroud, whose face is filled with serenity and peace, appears. Now, this is a photograph of the linen fabric of the Shroud of Turin. Did a burst of energy, possibly radiation or UV light or another electromagnetic event, leave the evidence in and among the fibrils of the linen fabric? Here we can see the change of color of the fibrils of the linen, and that's what causes the image to appear. The event whereby the man of the shroud left the folded shroud cloth without smearing the image, only letting the cloth collapse. The slight color rests on the molecular tips of the linen at the molecular level of the fibrils. The carbon-14 dating test. The carbon-14 test, conducted in 1988, gave results showing a medieval date age range of the fabric from 1260 AD to 1390 rather than the first century burial cloth. Essentially, these findings shut down the Shroud of Turin research. The 3 radiocarbon laboratories that analyzed the samples cut from the corner of the Shroud of Turin in 1988 were the University of Arizona, University Laboratory in Zurich, and University of Oxford, with the British Museum to oversee the operation. The conclusion of the 3 laboratories resulted in this date range with a confidence level of at least 95%. It was published in the journal Nature, Radiocarbon Dating of the Shroud of Turin. Today, that date range is in question. Currently, there are efforts to take another look at the carbon-14 results. The question of what may have caused the challenge to the findings is under study. What is carbon-14 dating? Dr. Harry Grove of the University of Rochester developed the carbon-14 accelerator mass spectrometer, carbon-14 dating technique, and testing using a small size sample. This is what was used for testing the Shroud of Turin. Earlier radiocarbon measuring techniques and testing to determine the rate of decay was first developed by Willard Libby, who received the Nobel Prize in 1947. Several Shroud researchers asked Oxford for the raw data from these 3 labs. This was not available. Recently, a Freedom of Information Act was filed to obtain the raw data. The new results are presented in the article Radiocarbon Dating of the Turin Shroud, New Evidence from Raw Data. And it says they strongly suggest that homogeneity is lacking in the data. Their finding of a lack of homogeneity has been suspected. Today, it may be proven that the sample cut from the edge of the Shroud of Turin does not represent the remainder of the linen fabric. And this is a photo that I took at the 2015 public exhibition of the Shroud of Turin, and I was way back in the room area in the cathedral. The carbon-14 protocol started with extensive requirements. However, in the end, only one area of the cloth was used, and you can see the cutout area in the upper edge of the Shroud of Turin. Now here's a sample that Oxford used of cut material, and also a sample that Oxford had that was taken from the Shroud of Turin showing evidence of added weaving and materials. Scientists questioned the C14 dates for several issues of concern. The first, that the samples sent to the 3 laboratories were not consistent with the overall shroud material, and the hidden threads showed a reweaving technique used to mend the shroud in various places where damage had occurred. This finding appears in the article Discrepancies in the Radiocarbon Dating Area of the Turin Shroud by Sue Benford and Joe Marino. As a summary, there have been countless thousands upon thousands of hours of investigative and forensic science efforts using scientific instruments and specialized lighting, and the little discussed results from the VP8 image analyzer that show detailed findings of the linen burial cloth containing the impression of a tortured man. How the image appears in the linen fabric remains unknown. What is exciting today is that the raw data from the carbon-14 dating results are recently available and by all accounts in need of another look. In the future, the new evidence may turn heads for another look.